Okay, so Paula and I have been going on for a little bit, and we realized what Paula has been helping kind of unfold, not just for herself, but there's certainly things that I see in it. Um, I wish I would have like punched the record button like 15 minutes ago.
I'm the
So
one who
without,
pulled it back
yeah,
because I'm like,
yes,
I
you
don't
did.
want to expose all my dirty laundry.
But nonetheless, let's open this up for others to hear because I sense that they're in similar positions. So can you review just a little bit about what we
Yeah.
were talking about?
Right. So I've been trying to kind of reflect, and upon reflection, additional unpacking has come with my experience of receiving telepathic messages from those from Telos starting last June. Around last June, kind of unsolicited, unaware that Telos existed, I started receiving telepathic messages. I did the week before talk to my group of other light workers. I said, calling all light workers, we need to get together because I feel like our services are going to be more needed. And then in one of my meditations, I got a message saying, hello, we're from Telos. We're light workers too. We've come upon your call. And then I was taken aback. And I thought, well, this is unsolicited. But when I really unpack the experience, I realize now, as I'm learning more about Telos and rereading Diane Robbins' book, a call goes out from Telos, her books, and Hollow Messages from Hollow Earth. I realize that they are very focused in on how they apply universal law in their day in and day out life. It is a very conscious decision. It's a conscious choice. They know that decisions they make today have an impact tomorrow, and they want to make sure they're in alignment. And I was talking to Lowell. I have been studying universal law for many years, but I realized, I said, Lowell, I don't know that you've been studying universal law, but you've been a unconscious competent of applying universal laws throughout your life. And as I'm unpacking it, I realize, what they do, and I think, Lowell, you probably do this too, whether you realize it or not, you kind of set a goal for yourself, or you set a desire that you want
You
to attain.
froze.
Oh, did I freeze? I'm sorry. At what point did
You
I
did,
freeze?
but you're back. I can hear you great. So continue.
Okay. So, when I was reading Diane Robbins' book, they kind of explain their life, and they say, well, we have dreams that, we have internal ideas that we want to make to come to fruition. We ensure that we have a challenge in our life. We ensure that we take on challenges, but we don't become anxiety driven because we have the faith in knowing, in applying universal law, that the challenges that we face and the outcomes that we desire will come to fruition over the long run. And we see that to their positive end. And I think to myself, kind of listening to Lowell now for the time that I've been listening, it's been maybe a year, maybe less than a year, I'm not sure. I listened to Lowell, and you've been doing that unconsciously throughout your life without like applying the law of this, the law of the law. I have been applying it consciously. I became aware of universal law and I started applying it to my life. And as one of my teachers said from mediumship, they said mediumship and telepathy are a byproduct of soul development and the ability to apply universal law to your life. It is a natural outgrowth of personal development. And so I said, well, how did this Talos thing come about? It just like hit me like a brick wall, but you know what? It didn't.
No.
This is what I'm going back and unpacking with. One time I was cleaning out the car, and something like my higher self or a voice said, Shambhala. And I said, oh my gosh, well, what is Shambhala? I'll look it up tonight. I'll look up what Shambhala is. And Shambhala ended up being what I read it to be and how I interpreted it from my limited perspective. Shambhala was simply like a utopian opportunity, like maybe Earth one day in the future could be this utopia. But I saw it as a myth. But here's what I did. Knowing universal law, I applied it to my affirmations. I said, I am so happy and grateful now that I have been guided to Shambhala. And then I've guided others to Shambhala too, because if you're going to do it, you don't want to do it alone. You want to be with others,
Yeah.
including my family and friends and whoever. So for a year and a half straight, I was saying that affirmation in the morning and sometimes even in the evening before I went to bed. But I just recently put the two and two together that, duh, Shambhala is part of the Agartha network, which is Talos. Talos is the one who's actually doing the outreach to humanity, not necessarily Shambhala. So I was like, I manifested that.
Yes,
But
you did.
the word came from my subconscious to listen to the word, but it's still my choice to follow through and do something with it, isn't it? I could have just
Yes.
heard it and just looked it up and said, well, that was interesting and threw it away. But because I knew universal law, I knew that when spirit speaks to you, you listen, you follow through. And then it came to fruition. So what I'm saying is I systemized it. And anybody can systemize it for themselves as well.
Well,
That
that's a
can be
gift that
taught.
you have.
That's
You
a
and I systemize things
that
that
can be
way.
taught to people for their own
Yes.
benefit.
Yes.
And then they can get their own telepathic messages as long as they're taught universal law. And then all of a sudden the mediumship and the telepathy emerges. And then they start getting the spirit communication, i.e. definition of telos, on their own. And then they get their own path there, right? Because
Well, that's a conscious awareness of it.
conscious awareness.
You've had it. Now, whatever light, whatever influences, whatever wisdom beyond ourselves, it was ours to begin with. And
Yes,
we're just
always been there.
unlocking it for our use
Revealing it.
now.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's always
And
been
there's
there.
reasons for that. So, there's so much unpacking that has to be done for people that are ignorant to this mindset. The fact that, first of all, they are reincarnated beings, and your soul is really what you should tie your idea of yourself to, and not this avatar that we're walking around in. When we
Exactly.
do, we're in the third dimension is a density that's meant for us to learn duality.
Right.
We are sparks of source, and part of our responsibility that we're here is to help source learn more about itself.
Right.
And so the soul contract and the lessons that I included in my particular incarnation this time around were to learn this set of lessons. And when we don't learn them this time, we reincarnate, and we pick up and we learn them until we learn them. And now we have that to contribute back to the rest of the Akash. This is why no one's lessons are the same, and they shouldn't be. What I'm supposed to be doing is learning particular lessons to share with everybody else. And my past, sometimes they parallel others, sometimes they cross others, sometimes short, sometimes long, but they weren't meant to continue to go in that direction, because others have other lessons that they're learning for themselves. And we need to just, if we're smart, we just allow that. We send them love and light, because we understand in the long run what they learn, the wisdom that they bring into themselves. Eventually, once it's stored in their Akashic records, that's shared with the collective in the long run. So when I continue to say thank you for all the lousy lessons you had to learn on our behalf, and you're welcome for the ones I had to go through, that's a real concept that most people haven't stopped to even consider.
Right. Yeah. It's all in the oneness. There's no separation.
Right. Yeah, but we don't understand that in this little place. So the fact that when we were told that the veil was being pulled back on a lot of things, we really didn't understand the breadth of what that was going to mean. That when we see these institutions really deteriorating from the inside,
they are really deteriorating from the inside out right now, very quickly. And I think that's what's going to happen. It's going to be a big paradigm shift.
Truth is being
not unlike
revealed.
9/11. Like one day your life was one way, and then your life was another day,
Wow.
was another
That's
way.
an interesting analogy, but a pretty damn accurate one.
Yeah,
The next realm for us, it's going to be different, but the differences in multidimensionality between where we are and where we're going, we have
yeah,
a sense of it. And a lot of us can articulate it because we've been there. That's the role we're going to play. And so
yeah,
earlier when you were talking about how we just feel like we're in neutral for a while, we're waiting for divine timing to catch up so that
yeah.
what we know and what we understand, we're here to share with others. I keep thinking of that when I watch what's going on and I hear people's reaction from a 3D standpoint. I keep laughing to myself that one day people are going to appreciate what I know when they get this sense about something that's going on. They can't really put their finger on it because it wasn't anything that they've experienced before. But where
Right.
do I go to get some clarity? That's when you're going to be
Yes.
glad that you knew who Lowell was, because been there, done that. And this is
Right.
the purpose that I'm staying behind to serve.
Right.
Last week, as I was going through one of these doldrums, I was having
Mm-hmm.
conversations with a couple of the other tribe members, and there was a point where like nothing was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it's not a place you want to spend a lot of time in, because your
Mm-hmm.
mind can wander into all the negative things on, why am I stuck here? And then
Yes.
I remind myself, wait a minute, Spirit didn't bring me this far and show me all the things that I was supposed to see just to bring me
Um,
this far and then be done. No,
you and
we're
I are
not
in
to the
that
point.
same boat. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're right, because my mind was going really dark. It was like, really? I got this far and I'm abandoned? Like, what's going
Well, I've had some people that I've known for a while that I don't know the reasons why, but they're pushing themselves away, and
on?
that's I don't have the time nor the inclination to research it and figure out why. It's not up to me. They've got their
Mm.
own journeys, and I'm just here to support
Oh
that.
yeah, you
But I
can't control
see
that.
clearly what's going on, and if it
Yeah.
doesn't resonate with you, then bless your hearts.
Oh,
Go
for
and learn
sure.
your other lessons.
Yeah, yeah,
But I can't deny the things that are going on.
yeah. Oh, you cannot.
Um,
And it's becoming into the mainstream information. The um I'll be honest, like when I study universal law, I stick to the positive, stick to the positive, stick to the positive so that I'm
yes.
grounded in it. But I'll tell you what, I'm like you. I'm looking at all these things and I'm like, okay, there's a lot of stuff going on underneath the covers here that's not been good for many, many years. And you can't be a Pollyanna you have to just recognize, but know that it's in the long run. I'm coming to know it now because it's falling apart as opposed to feeding into it.
Yes.
Being aware
Yes.
of it at the right time allows for me to observe its downfall as opposed to getting caught up into the shenanigans of it, right? Like, 'cause I don't want to
Yes.
go there. But I
I
think it's
agree.
coming apart now. So it's like now it's
Mhm.
time to acknowledge it. Okay, this is
We were
happening.
told
I'm
long
good.
ago that the world was going to fall into chaos, and we
Yeah.
didn't know what that meant.
No,
Here
you
it
don't really
is.
understand.
Look around you now. Everything that they said is materializing around us right
It
now.
is
There's
exactly.
uncertainty about a variety of things.
It
And
is.
if you stop to focus on, where we are and what caused it, this divide between people is
Yeah,
what caused all of this.
absolutely.
And
Our
I don't
belief in
know that,
separation.
yeah, it's not like there's an even number of people who get it and those that don't. I
Yeah,
still think that the ones that want to dwell on negativity, they're the real minor um,
yeah.
minority.
No, I
That's what I
agree.
believe, but
I
they're the
agree.
loudest ones.
Yeah,
And they want to amplify the things that just don't resonate with the rest of us. Now, the
right.
trouble is that the media continues to like to trigger us in whatever way they can, because
Yeah,
that's how they get our attention and that's how they
right.
keep it. They keep stirring into your emotions, which is the one thing that makes us human. This is what makes
Right.
us different from
Yeah, they hit
any
your
other
emotions.
entity in the galaxy, is
Right.
humanity has sovereignty, free will, um, and the ability to make their own minds up. We're unique. The entire galaxy is watching this experiment play out, but this experiment's done. We're finished
Done.
learning through
Done.
dimensional lessons because the Earth has.
Yeah.
We as everyone knows, is moving into a new level of consciousness. And
Yeah.
what we have all been here to help people understand is that we've reached a level of vibration that matches where she's going. And as a result of that, those things that also vibrate at that level, which happen to be around us all the time, I can experience. The rest of you, for the most part, can't see, hear the things that I can yet, because your vibration's just stuck in this density right here.
It is.
And you haven't allowed yourself enough time to focus and quiet yourself so you can reach into it and see it and experience it. But the clock is ticking. The time that this is all going to shift is soon. And the things that we say are to benefit others and help them prepare for this.
Right.
I still know that a lot of them are going to poo-poo this idea and they're not going to get it. And it's not up to me to get upset or, to stop because somebody didn't get it. Again, I send them love and light and I'm on my way. And I wasn't in this to gather millions of people together to all kumbaya in the same way. I was totally happy with a small group of people who get it. That army, that little army will eventually, their light is going to affect a lot of other people around them. And that's how this happens. But right now, that phenomenon hasn't played itself out enough yet so that we can begin to introduce ideas of, I don't want to charge, the environment with this word, but I would be ignorant to think that the world is not through with catastrophes. Just look around you, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions that are rare and new, tsunamis that are created by that. We're not finished with any of that. And that doesn't account for the magnetic information, electromagnetic information that is, triggering and stirring the earth from the sun. And it's not coming necessarily from the sun. Her influence is affected by our central sun. And until you really understand the scientific end of the cosmos, which was one of the things that I first grabbed onto first, because when you're trying to go through this in your 3D mindset, you want science to help you make sense of some of these things. So when I read that scientists understood cosmic cycling, the precession of the equinoxes, and how those cycles all reset in 2012, if you paid attention to it and opened your mind up just this much to think that, well, maybe if that's possible, then I can see, a progression here. And that those ideas were introduced to us a little bit at a time for us to get used to the idea.
Yeah.
Your trigger to telos wasn't that different than mine, except mine was physical. But the fact that you and I had little idea about telos before, at least in our mindset here right now, it doesn't speak to what our experiences we've had before and what roles we played in the past. Those things are awakening to us now, where now we begin to apply the things that you talked about. And I love that you brought up universal laws today so people can understand that as opposed to laws we created.
No, it's
Once
not.
you embrace that, we're good.
It's the universal laws. And, so I've been feeling like you, like I'm sitting in neutral. I don't want to be in neutral. I want to be effective, or I want to be doing the right thing. I feel like the time is coming. It could be that we're in the eye of the storm, but what's been a little bit, I think might be a little bit more effective in communicating this instead of, because I think I've always, what I'm now realizing, or what's opening up to me, is that it's not that these beings are advanced at all. They are not advanced, because if they're the majority, and I do feel that the number of beings in the universe that use the electromagnetic energy field, that know universal law and apply it, that they do live infinite lives, as long as they want to, until they want to incarnate in a different way. They're the majority. You realize they're the majority. we are a very tiny minority, not unlike, let's say, well, Lowell, you and I are both from Minnesota, so we know there's Amish communities, and they live a different life around the people that have all the modern conveniences and add technologies all the time. They don't. And so now I'm seeing ourselves, and I include myself in this because I totally don't understand it all myself, but I want to be open to it, is that they are not advanced. It's that um our development has been arrested. It's
Oh,
been somewhat
yes.
on purpose and manipulated, to your point. Now, are we infinite souls and we sort of chose this? Sure, we did, but there's been outside forces that have dampened our development. So
Yes.
instead of talking about them being advanced and wrapping our mind around whether that can be true or not, it's more like, hey, people, do you realize that we developed the wheel and axle system more than 6,000 years ago? And we haven't, even the most advanced Lamborghini and Tesla still use that same system? That's
Yeah,
too long.
it's
That's
really funny that
too
you say that.
long.
I
That's
had,
arrested development. I
yeah,
don't care what a Lamborghini does. It's sloppy and sluggish and slow compared to a spacecraft that we're seeing revealed.
well, wait till people really understand how transportation takes place in the future.
Oh,
We think
ridiculous. Yeah.
that things that move along the surface have to be propelled in some way. An
Yeah.
aircraft has to be propelled in some way. That is not the way they move.
That's not the way the
Their source
majority
of
of the universe
energy is
moves.
different. Yes,
We
that's
are in
right.
the minority. We are very much in the minority. So I think
Yeah.
if I approach it like, no, you're the one that's different. That's not unusual. You are the unusual one. And to your point, because we're so unusual, we're eyeballed by the whole universe as an
Yeah.
anomaly.
They
Death
can't
is an
see this
anomaly.
perspective yet because there's a degree that this programming's been hammered into us over time. The
Yeah.
labels that we've been given, some of those we wear proudly and some, we don't like. That's the whole nature of 3D. We're trying to explain to people that there's another perspective that you should
Yeah.
begin to look at. And when I learned the 3 reasons why I was invited to tell us, the first one was that I could hold 5th dimensional awareness. And of course, there's lots of metaphysical people go, yeah, I can do that too. No, that's not what that means. It means that you can hold it and you can understand that perspective while you're living in this 3D environment, that you have the wherewithal within yourself to look beyond whatever is going on around you, this, context learning environment that I'm sitting in. I see beyond that because I understand that person over there that said something that didn't resonate with me, that I shouldn't be triggered into, oh, well, they're not like me. And, I shouldn't pay any attention to that. Where my higher aspect knows that there's part of me in them.
Oh,
There's
for
part of
sure.
them in me. We are connected to everybody. We forget that in this density. But once the collective mind starts to see past that and understands that even though what you tell me, I don't understand, I can't resonate with, that doesn't make you a bad person. That's your
Right.
contribution to what's changing. And I should see it that way. But we've just been in this rut for so long that it's difficult to get out of it because it's almost impossible to
Oh my
get
gosh. And they
past
know
the
it's
place
impossible.
where,
Yeah. We're
yeah,
stuck in a
I've
paradigm.
been in this community long enough and been interviewed like 60 plus times now that I went back and reviewed it. And I look back at some of those entities, and these were people that I believed when I first met them had a heart in the same place where mine was. Well, later you understand that most of them that want to talk about secret space programs and abductions, and I'm not saying that those things didn't take place.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that they did. I've
Yeah.
met some of the people that have been through those circumstances, but that's a story that they continue to repeat.
Yeah, the
That's not
more that,
my experience.
and universal law says whatever you think about the most, you keep creating. You are
Oh, honey,
contributing
good.
to its existence by
Yes.
focusing on it.
Mhm.
That's why I never, I
What you
just,
put out is what you get back in abundance,
yeah,
period.
you're a contributor to it. You are never
Mhm.
an observer. You're always, if you're thinking about it, you're participating in it.
Right.
So
You're feeding it. When you give
you're
it your
keeping
attention,
it
you're feeding
going,
it energy.
right?
Look at that. Now, when somebody said that to me, I have that reference frequently. When something is annoying me a little bit, I go back to that and just kind of measure that benchmark.
Right. Exactly. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm actually at a family reunion.
Well, I figured it was something like that. Well, we'll see how
Yeah.
much of it you get to share with your family. But yeah,
Oh, I know. Poor, well,
you want them to
they're
all
really
get
good
it.
down to earth people, you know.
You know, we set our scenarios, and I had some time over the last couple of days to spend a lot of time with my son, which is kind of rare. And that's when I really appreciate when I understand that we choose our circumstances in each one of these incarnations. And if that's true, I know I chose my parents, and I know why I chose them. They weren't going to
Mm,
play much of a role in my life.
mm,
My natural mother was gone by the time I was 4, and I had a little contact with her after that. And my
mm,
dad and I didn't see eye to eye. I grew up with my paternal grandparents for 11 years or so. And so really that was the basis of a family unit. But, I'd been smart enough and independent enough all along the way that it wasn't going to lean on parental influence much. So
mm.
I must have done that purposely. And it turns out I did okay. I had a level of intellect that helped me understand and see the things that I had. Um, Different from others, yes. And I'm not saying I'm smarter, I'm just more awake. And now that
Mhm.
I look back, I see that would have been all along. I see the world for what it is. And I can
Yeah,
see in people's hearts, and I can see what troubles them. And I don't know that I have the words to help them understand what I did to help me see beyond it. And
yeah,
that's where, I feel like I'm supposed to help spend my energies there some way. But in having conversations with people, you just pull back. You can tell what people are ready for these conversations and which ones aren't. And again, I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm not here to engage you in a dialogue about what you think is true and not. I can tell you, I've had multidimensional experiences physically, boots on the ground. And there's a part of me now, while we were in these um, doldrums, if you want to call it that,
mhm,
um, I was listening to an interview that Reuben Langdon was doing with Assara Adams. And if you know who Assara is, Assara um, channels Adama and the Pleiadians and a galactic group. And she has for, I want to say, 15 years. If you knew her history before that, she lived in Florida and was very successful in real estate, property management. And then, the call came and said, you're moving to Shasta, and Adama and others are going to speak through you. Well, she followed that impulse, and, here she is. So when I was listening to her the other day, um, there were a few times when she was reflecting on my experiences and how they were physical. And she said, I haven't been allowed to do that physically. I go there astrally, often. And that's when we resonated. There were things that I mentioned about my physical trip that weren't ever put in any books. And so it wasn't that was a source of information for me, but Asara had seen them and knew them. And that's how she
mm.
knew that it was authentic. So when later um, she had reflected on, she hadn't been able to go there. And she said herself that, no, let me see how she put it, and then I'll articulate a little bit. She wasn't allowed to go because she wouldn't come back.
Oh,
And that's exactly right.
I can see
She's
that.
got work to finish here. And
Mhm.
I felt that way last week. Man, there was a time, was it last fall? Same place. Look, I
Mm,
know, I see what's coming. I've been in that civilization. I see what it's like. I want to go there.
yeah.
I'm done with this.
Yeah.
But that's not what I signed up for. I
No, it's
signed
not
up
what
to
we
help
signed up
people
for.
through the transition till the transition takes place. So I have to stop thinking that way, and just make myself available for the rest of them
Yeah.
that are here. But that's hard
Well,
when it just
I
feels like
have
you're
things
neutral.
bubbling up. Yeah, I've got things bubbling up, and they're bubbling up pretty big right now. And I'm having that feeling because when I was writing the book, and I'm sure you know this feeling, but it was so much driven purpose running through my veins. It was just, you
Yeah.
couldn't do anything but that. And that when I'm feeling that starting to bubble up again, and then so I I'll stay in touch. I know well, and we're all in this together. The tribe is all working together in this. And so, none of us are separate, even though we're doing our different things. And I love that about it because guess what? If it if it was something that it was like cultic, we'd all be doing the same thing.
Right.
And we're
Well,
not.
we'd be looking for some kind of text and we need to follow the
Or we'd
text.
be looking
No,
for
no.
some leader. This is everybody's independent journey, and we're all dovetailing our unique pieces together. And that's what makes it so genuine and real is that I'm attached to teachings, right? Universal law. I follow
Yes.
universal law and this welling up within myself, my next steps. I don't ever look to anything outside, right? Although outside circumstances seem to be paired with the feelings that I have inside, right? Like so part of the oneness, but things are bubbling up. So something's
Yeah.
going on.
I well, I had pushed out from the space weather dashboard on NOAA, and saw that we're in the middle of a geomagnetic storm. Well, I could have told you that yesterday because I feel those things, and people
Feel
that are
it.
empathic, we feel that influence
Mm.
coming at us now, and it plays itself out in different ways. But yeah, it's a physical feeling. So
Yeah.
as this has been going on now for several months, I just get validation when I see I've got an app that looks at space phenomenon, space anomalies, when the KP index rises or when there's enough solar wind coming our direction that it changes things. I've been paying attention to all this for a while, and I was shown that because here is the influence that is affecting Earth. Our magnetic field has broken down since 2010
Mm.
drastically. So the
Mm.
protective, entity we've had around us is weakening. Now, in the cosmic scheme of things, it's meant to do that
Yeah.
because the rest of the solar influence, whatever plasma level of photon energy that's coming our way, that's changing the nature of all sentient beings on a cellular level, preparing them for this next stage of vibration, because that's where Earth is going. This wasn't a choice, and humanity isn't in control of this environment. This phenomenon that's going on is a cosmic cycle that she's in, and she, like everything else, is in a state of evolution. She is moving to her next level. Humanity, which has been here for this experiment all along, is now trying to understand the nature of what is taking place so that they, as a sentient being, that their vibration is matching where hers is going, so that if we're here and signed up to experience new Earth, here are the things that you need to understand about what's going to make
Right.
that happen.
Right. It's wonderful. We're on a journey, but I'm in the funk right now. I'll be honest with you.
I I
It is
I
honest.
I don't disagree, and we'll just have to wait. There was a revelation I had this week, and so I mentioned it to Ted Maher the other day, who I did an interview with finally, and we were talking about oh why I've had this urge to research inner Earth. And now I know why. Telos isn't the only inner Earth city. So let's take a look at what we've just been talking about for a while now, and that phenomenon that's going to, boost Earth into a new level of consciousness. These evidence, the signs that we see of that, these volcanic eruptions and all these anomalies and, weather. Look at the disparities between temperatures and different places in the planet.
Oh my gosh.
And then, when you think that, just when you think you got a handle on it, because California, where I've been now for a while, has been in a drought for a while. And then, like that, there's so much water that has found its way here that we're no longer in a drought. How quickly does that shift? That's just, how can you wrap your head around that? Well, Earth is, finding her spot. Right. So if you think that activity, we're not done. Oh no, there's going to be more catastrophic things that happen around the planet. And so what came to me is that, while there's been this disclosure effort to talk about beyond Earth sentience and that kind of traffic, that, you and I and people like us have opened the door to, Telos, first of all. Well, Telos is one city. The greater understanding is that there are 120 inner Earth cities. 120. And I am aware of 9 of them. I interpret that so that, where did the Lemurians and the Atlanteans, who I don't want to discount because there's Atlantean influences on the planet still. They took a bad rap for what had happened way back then, but that wasn't the nature of every Atlantean. And they're as powerful.
Some of them made it into inner Earth too. Yeah.
As the Lemurians that are here. So they have things to offer us as well. And I don't want to say that Atlanteans have nothing to. We talk about Lemuria a lot because it's Telos, but believe me, there's greater influence than that. I believe that's where they went. If they didn't leave the surface and go off planet, they went underground.
They did
and
go
I
underground.
say underground, it wasn't underground. They're dimensional beings. And yes, they're in a space within inner Earth that we can't totally comprehend yet, but that's where they are. We are going to be invited to join them when this happens on the surface. It's not that we don't have an awareness of these golden Taya areas that already vibrate at the level of new Earth, and people are beginning to understand them, grow their awareness of them, and travel to them. I believe that I was supposed to help bring awareness to, this other element that is going to be available to us that nobody was really thinking about. When we talk about UFOs and aliens, and if you want to use that terminology, we're always thinking about, what we see in the sky and these images of, beings that have come from off planet. We don't give much consideration to those higher elemental beings that are here already.
And Occam's razor, the most obvious answer is the right one.
Yes.
Because they're always saying, well, how would they get here? How would they get here? Occam's razor says the most obvious answer is they're already here.
True. And they have been for a while. Look, I understand myself and the circumstances on how we got here, because, we used nuclear missiles back in the 40s. Yeah, that's when, in my mind, more interactions from other places came to assist, because we're just about to demonstrate that we could destroy parts of the planet. Yeah. I had, whether I should say this or not, I happened to find on YouTube the other day, Truman giving his announcement. I think it was like 45 minutes long, giving his announcement to, the US about what his intentions were and how to drop the bomb. And there was a place in there you could tell that this was just taped indefinitely. And then, there were pieces that were going to be meant for this that they would edit out, and this is what they'll send out to the public. There was a place in there, halfway through it that he actually smiled. And what bothered me about that is that here's the leader of the free world smiling about a bomb he's going to drop with nuclear effects on the planet.
Yeah.
And that was a little troubling.
Nefarious. Yeah.
We didn't know what we didn't know. We still thought that that was the enemy. And the thing that troubles me most about the leadership that we have anywhere on the planet is that they don't seem to have the same regard for others' lives that I have, and that it's okay for us to hurt others. That's where I lose all the rest of them to begin with. If I really believe that I'm connected to everything else here, I can't bring myself to hurt somebody else. When I think about that, I've been in 3 altercations in my life, and they were all when I was younger. One was in a hockey game, which, yeah, you'd expect that. And 2 others were, things that I'd encountered on the street. And in the end, they were more about me kind of coming to defend somebody else, as opposed to, some interaction I was having that was unpleasant with somebody else. But
yeah,
man, there's a vibration here that people need to be aware of. You're muted.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't agree more. And one thing that, when I was having the book dictated to me that I was writing, and one thing that I learned in mediumship and intuitive training, because, is they say, when you have, because it's evidentiary reading. So then you bring something up in somebody's life that happened in the past to bring evidence that you really have the loved one with you. And I'm not just, and so they'll bring up evidence from the past, like, oh, do you remember when you and your grandpa went fishing one time and la, 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 it's evident. Well, what they always tell you is, if they're bringing it up in the past, that means there's something similar happening in their life now that they're trying to either heal or bring forward or show love with. So in my book, so much of it is bringing the past, what happened in the past, some things that I didn't know. Like, I knew that there was World War II. I knew there was Nazi Germany. I did not know there was so many American companies involved in the Nazi movement to move it forward, to make it as effective as it was and efficient as it was. I did not know that. But what's been unpacking for me is that, Paula, we brought that up to you to make awareness, because if it happened then, we're telling you that it's happening now in some way. So bringing the past into the present, making you aware that it's happening today, and connecting that to everything's happening today. Even what happened with Lemuria is kind of like resurfacing and happening today with us, if that makes sense. Like, what's of concern, and you're driving the home point, the point home to me with what you're saying, is that they wanted to save everybody. Like you said, for humanity's sake, you want to save everybody. The ones involved in developing Talos before they moved in wanted to save everybody, so they made room for everybody. But how many made it? 25,000.
Small fraction. Yes.
And you were saying, I want to tell everybody, but I'm coming to the conclusion that I'm probably going to have a small number.
Yes.
So they're they tell you about the past to kind of tell you what's coming in the future. And here's the deal. You're bringing up what Truman is saying, because guess what? The leaders today, same thing, right?
Yes.
Bringing that up
they haven't really learned.
They brought that up, the Truman thing, in my book too. They were guiding me to write about his perspective and how he was the kind of the front man to dampening this bigger world that was available to us, even though we had so much going for us in terms of development of the electromagnetic energy field. So many mediums were developing at that time. A whole spiritualist church had developed with these greater understandings of universal law. And as soon as he came in and the bombs were dropped, all of that development just stopped.
Yes.
It just stopped. But I'm wondering, because another thing that I brought up in the book was there was this Maria Orsic who had received instructions on how to develop a spacecraft. There's Maria, she was only 19 years old, and she received full instructions on how to develop the craft. She found other occult members that had financed in building it. And I'll tell you what, guess what? I know that she took that ship and she used it as a Noah's Ark to pull some people from Germany and Japan. And she went away with them because they were not of the vibration of those shenanigans. And she left, and she and 4 other mediums left. And you know, at those mediums, when I was writing my book, I could hear them speaking to me. And you know what they said, Lowell? And I know you're in on this too. They said that I had developed a skill to work with the dark and the light, work and appreciate both. And I think you probably do too, because I've worked with a lot of the dark characters in my life.
I do resonate with that. When I think of when I was younger, when I was in school, I had switched schools in grade school. And so I went into environments where, like I'm the new kid and I didn't really know anybody. And yet in every scenario, I got along with the brainy kids. I got along with the jocks. I got along with the kids that, smoke cigarettes out behind, school. And, the tough kids, for whatever reason, I had
worked with the dark and the light.
I could communicate with everybody.
Yeah.
It wasn't always fun because we still live in 3D, but nonetheless, I had no fear of guys that were bullies.
Yeah. Right.
There was one other thing I wanted to talk about, and we touched on Assara, and pretty much the reason why she's not allowed to go yet.
Yeah. I resonate with that completely. I would not be allowed in.
Last year, I had a producer who was with a company, and they were trying to develop something that they wanted to pitch to Discovery Plus. Had got a green light on the content, and it had to do with people that went missing around Mount Shasta. Well, when he talked to me about that, I said, that isn't really what I want to talk about. And so I gave them Diane Robbins' name. If you want to talk about somebody that's familiar with Shasta, I gave her name. I gave him Rob Potter's name, and I backed away. And, then I had a chance to think about it. And when I did, the souls that understand, what's going on here, I'm absolutely certain that once they went, they did not come back.
Mm-mm.
Who would?
It's like people that have near-death experiences and they're in that realm and they feel home. Like, I'm not going back. And they're like, no, you're done. You got to go back. Like, I'm not going back. Even if they have children and families and everything. Like, they'll be okay. I'm staying.
It's true.
I don't blame them.
I've had people that have expressed concern that, their awareness is awoken, and, they're concerned for their family. They might not make it. And all I can tell you is that my guides tell me to tell you to focus on your own flame.
Yes.
And when you do that, then everything around you will fall into place. Those souls that you're riding with, those people that are here in these other avatars, whether they're family, children, whatever they are, look, you've been connected to them way longer than just this incarnation. And when you get back to the place where you realize that, you're going to see them all waiting for you, and a lot of other people that you were connected to that you didn't have any interactions with in this incarnation. Nonetheless, you're connected to all of them. We forget those things when we come to play out this particular incarnation in this avatar, and it was explained that along the way we're going to remember who we are along the way. But until this one came along,
to remember it more. I am.
And it took me until really it started in early 2016 when the lights came on for me. So I'd been wandering around the planet for like 6 decades, doing the same thing everybody else is doing. Trying to get some recognition, and I want a good job, and I want to make some money, I want to have a house, I want to have things in a family, I want.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I was like everybody else, and then something triggered me in the middle of a pretty damn lucrative contract. I was working at a casino company, getting ready to do what I love to do, and we were about to move a casino operation from a riverboat landside. I was going to get to retrofit all of the non-gaming things, including a 300-room hotel. So I was all dialed in. This is going to be great. Well, they were in a transition because the company that owned it, El Dorado, was in the process of acquiring all of Caesars Entertainment. So lots of projects were put on hold. And so I'm making well over 6 figures, kind of sitting biding my time. And at the same time, I'm beginning to have higher thought patterns. And so when I got to really June of 2019, I'd had this in my field for a while, and something said, you're supposed to be doing something else. So
Mm.
I kind of wandered through that for another 4 or 5 months. And when I got to the beginning of December, yes, I submitted my resignation, gave him 6 weeks notice, and decided that, I think it was February 6th or so was going to be my last day. Now, even the GM, who's been through these kind of transitions before, said, well, after a week, I'm going to pay you anyway. You don't really have to come in. Well, no, I need something to do. And I didn't want to leave my team back until they understood the things that I did and somebody could just take it over. So I stayed until the last day. It wasn't my intent to bail on any of the team that had assembled there. I was just supposed to do something else. So I left a job where I was making somewhere between 150 and 180,000 a year to, no one's paying me to chase these things down. And yet somehow the resources have come my way to finish the things I'm supposed to finish. And, I didn't sit in the house here in Santa Rosa this entire time. I've been all over the place. And there was reasons why that happened. There are additional resources coming our way now. It just took time for us to put our intent on where it was those were going to be applied, so that divinely they would find our way to us. Tribe is showing up, resources are showing up. And once we got past the point where we thought our limitations, and I'm speaking about Dave and I in particular right now, we always thought we weren't going to pull any of these things off until we figured out, how to make the money to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's when
Right.
we were instructed, that's not your role.
You have to
There'll
take the
be
action
other
first.
resources that are going to come into the tribe that'll bring those things. But what you're doing, what Dave is doing, that is your contribution. We weren't asking you to be the finance director too. And so that's when whatever anxiety that was left went. When I don't have to worry about, how it's going to be done, just continue to focus on the direction you're going through. And, you'll see the resources are going to show up. If I told you the parade of people that went through Dave's pie shop in the last 2 weeks, unsolicited, showing up because they both had seen some phenomenon in the sky off, the Southern California coast. He's in Hermosa Beach, and wanted to talk to somebody about it and didn't know why, but they went into the pie shop and felt that they could talk about these things with Dave. Well, now we know why they were drawn there. And so here's the profile of these people that have shown up. We've all heard about this month-long thing that's going on with the writer's strike and SAG and all of that in Hollywood. These were all people from Hollywood. The first one was a writer who was there with their boyfriend. And once they got into a conversation, they were there for a couple hours having these conversations about Dave. The following Monday, there was another individual who came in early and was I think I saw something in the sky and I don't know who to talk to about it. It just feels like I can talk to you about it. Well, they talked for a couple hours, and then this guy came back on Wednesday, spent the afternoon with Dave. And what Dave found out, when the guy had heard Dave's part of the story before we got into conversations about, our interactions, he said, wow, there's a cool movie in this. Dave said, you have no idea. And that's when he said, well, I was a producer. Dave said, yeah, we got some ideas for something that we know is supposed to come out. And right now what we're lacking is just the resources to make it happen. This guy goes, well, there's nothing but money in Hollywood, but there's nothing else going on. So can you see how these other resources are being sent in our direction so that they can become aware of what's going on? And somebody soon is going to be that last piece of the puzzle that has more money than they know what to do with. And just this inkling inside of them that something is going on.
Yeah.
And these guys seem to know what it is.
What it is.
It's imminent.
It's imminent. That's perfect to end on too.
Yes, it is.
It's imminent.
So I'm going to go and enjoy your family. And
I am, but
we'll
you know
catch
what?
up
You
again
gave
soon.
me some peace because I've been in the which has been very difficult. So that brings me some hope and peace, knowing that Dave's message is out there and getting to the right people. And probably, definitely I know that you have a message and I have a message, and I'm terrible about getting it out. I need to get my message out better.
None of us, I have two specific perceptions all the time now. The first one is my reflex, and it's my 3D reflex to things that have happened. Yeah, and it's usually emotionally charged in some way, but I'm a Capricorn, and I can tamp that down and keep it to myself, but I still feel myself going in that direction because that's my nature.
Yeah.
Then I see my higher aspect steps in and says, yes, you see all that, but when we see it from this perspective, and you're connected to that person over there, even though what they just said, they're clueless is a good word, clueless about the conditions that they're feeling right now and don't understand it, and yet within the framework of their programming, the things that we've learned along the way, and we learned from people who didn't know any better. They just passed along what they knew. Some of it just doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
So now I'm beginning to recognize that point in myself when the early beginnings of something other than myself, beyond myself, I was beginning to get in touch with. I see that now in others. So they're at the same place I was when I couldn't make anything out of it. And I'm going through my memory banks and nothing seems to be triggered in there. I can't find anything that matches this. And then all of a sudden something does. Now I have had accelerators along the way that have helped prop open my DNA in a manner that most others have not.
Yeah.
And so that's why I see perspectives that the rest of you will see, no doubt.
Right.
I'm just on an accelerated path.
The faith of it. Yeah. Wonderful. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
You too, kid.
All
Love
right,
to you.
take
Talk to
care.
you soon.
Okay, take care. Bye.